There's the snap to Jared. He's back and looking. Jared throwing, end zone. It is up and caught. What a grab there by Isaac TeSlaa.
Welcome to Week 18 of the NFL season. I am Tim Twentyman. This is the Twentyman Huddle podcast. She is Dannie Rogers. Does a great job as Lions team reporter. Thanks for joining me.
Of course. I'm excited.
Yeah.
It took 18 weeks to ask me, but it's fine.
Oh, here we go. The guilt trip starts already. What about this? I saved the best for last. Haven't you ever heard that?
Yes. In this Week 18.
This Week 18.
The best for last.
Now, obviously, the Lions are not where they want to be, Danny.
No.
You know, and but fans would say, well, they've got a meaningless Week 18 game. There's no such thing in the NFL, in my opinion, of a meaningless football game. Football game. You get an opportunity to go out there, put something on film. Represent a city, represent yourself. And like Dan Campbell said this week, play for the guy next to you. And that's probably an important message this week.
Well, I think also sweeping Chicago in a season would be great too. Got him in week 2. Why not get him in week 18?
Sweep the NFC North champions.
There's nothing else you can do but spoil Chicago's little end to their regular season.
And it would be a spoil for Chicago. They're obviously playing for the number 2 seed, which is important. Number 2 versus number 3.
And they don't want to lose to Dan Campbell in Detroit. Ben Johnson does not want to lose to Dan Campbell, and I assume it's vice versa. So I think there is a little bit of motivation actually going into this one for the players. I don't think it's going to be that hard to bring it out of them.
No, there's some storylines still to talk about this week, even though the ultimate goal for the Lions isn't going to be fulfilled in 2025. Yeah. But let's start with this, Danny. So then looking to Sunday, what's the number one thing you want to see in Chicago on Sunday?
A win. So Detroit finishes above 500. I will say that. That's a big one. But also, I kind of what we're talking about, for it not to look like a meaningless game on the field. So that you're seeing all-out effort, you're seeing detail, you're seeing all the guys who can physically play. I think maybe it's college football rubbing off on me right now that a lot of guys just sit out these bowl games, which I don't entirely disagree, but in the NFL, it's, if they're available, they're the ultimate competitors. You want to see everyone going out there and playing. And when it gets to the fourth quarter, you don't want it to feel like it's the end of the season and it's dragging on. You kind of want to feel like maybe Green Bay, back in 2022?
Yeah.
You kind of wanted to feel like
didn't
that.
Have anything to play for.
You were so close. There was nothing else you could do except get that last dub and spoil it for another team. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
All things considered.
No, I like that. For me, it's getting back to some of the things that made you that team in 2023 and 2024, right? Winning at the line of scrimmage, protecting your quarterback. How about this, Danny? Running the football.
Run the football.
Where has
Run
that
the
been?
dang football.
Run the dang football. In Lions wins, they average 170.5 yards per game with a 5.8 average. In their losses, that number is all the way down to 69.4 with a 3.1 average. They run the football, they win the game. They don't run the football, they lose the game. It's really that simple. One time this year, they've rushed for 100 yards and lost a football game. That was Thanksgiving, Green Bay. I just want to see him get back to doing some of the things that got him good, you know, and maybe can give you a little bit of momentum going into an off season where I think you and I can both agree there's going to be quite a few changes.
And we thought there were a lot of changes coming into this season. There are 11 new coaches on the staff, which I think we might have downplayed a little bit. I think we're seeing now, hey, that actually was a big pill to swallow. That was a lot of changes. And then also, I think we downplayed the offensive changes that were incoming. And a little bit of that had to do with the players being like, oh, it's not that big of a difference in the playbook. It's not that big of a difference in the play calling. I think we downplayed all of that. So I think there's going to be major changes incoming.
Sequencing, all those things, you know, Ben Johnson was really, you know, good at it. I think you missed some of those things, you know, in some certain situations. You certainly did. So when you look at the totality of it, and look, I know we still got one more to go, but what's been maybe one of the more disappointing things for you when you see a team that had Super Bowl expectations that now sits at 8-8?
It's true. There were Super Bowl expectations for the third season in a row. I think for me, gosh, this is tough. And I don't obviously want to put blame on anything in one player, because it's not one player. The biggest disappointment for me, what we just touched on, was the run game. Yeah. I think because we are talking about a player in a lot of the same sentences as Barry Sanders this year and Jahmyr Gibbs. And by no means is it his fault that the run game just plummeted here in the latter part of the season. But I think that was the biggest disappointment, because that is so entangled with the offensive line that's so entangled with how well Jared Goff plays. It's like Jahmyr Gibbs, like he is the next GOAT, should we say, in terms of running backs. And I think for that to just plummet, I think as quickly as it did, like we kind of saw it. He was scoring a touchdown every other game. We're like, okay, he'll pick it up. He'll string some together. And then it just never happened.
And there was a stretch where we had 3 touchdowns, and that coincided with what I talked about earlier, with the wins and losses and being able to run. And mine coincides with that. It's the offensive line.
I know.
You know, for me, that's been really, really disappointing. I think they've gotten inconsistent play at the center position. Just a couple things. 20th in run block win rate. 31st, Danny, in pass block win rate. That's not what we have been used to here. And I think that explains a lot about the inconsistencies with the run game, some of the inconsistencies with the offenses, just the inconsistent play they've gotten up front, pretty much from every position except for right tackle at points this season. And it's, to me, the biggest priority of the upcoming offseason.
Is the O-line.
Is fixing it, starting with who's going to be your center, and you work out from there. Whether that's a free agent, well, that's a guy you draft. Whether you still are going to move Tate Ratledge there. Dan Campbell said this week that's still on the table for them. Whatever that is, you figure out, and you have to start there. What do they always say about playing good football? Starts from the football and work your way out. So that guy touches it every play on offense. He's the guy that works tandem with Jared Goff. That's the position you have to figure out. And so it doesn't sound like it's going to be Frank Ragnow. And so to me, that's what you have to fix. And then I think everything else falls in line going outward. But that was the most disappointing thing to me is, you know, they're 14th in the protection index by StatSync. They're an average offensive line. And that hasn't been the case, and why this team has been so good, especially offensively, because they've been elite offensive line. I'd like to see them getting back to being elite again.
And if you think about it, if Frank did come back and play, and I'm so happy that he is retired, and I hope he stays retired. I think he deserves that, and he owes that to himself. Unless he wants to play, come on back, Frank. But happy for him and his family that he's able to, you know, do that at age 30. But if Frank was still in, you're only replacing one guy on the offensive line. You're not bringing in 2 rookies and moving a guard over to center, whose preference is to play guard. So I think that shook things up more than we thought it might in the end. I think we downplayed a lot of things.
Oh, he can just slot right over there. He's done it before. He can move over there. No big deal.
No,
it's not.
2 rookies. No, that's not how that happened.
What's the biggest matchup Sunday in Chicago? How do Lions get a win?
This is a fantastic question. I was talking with Coach Campbell earlier this week in our little opponent preview, and he didn't even let me finish the sentence. I said Chicago is number 1 in turnover ratio by he's like, so much. He's like, he's like, it's insane. I'm like, by a mile.
I think they have plus 22, and I think Houston's at plus 14.
Yes,
like
by
8.
a mile. They are
That's
the
crazy.
Stingiest football team out there and causing a lot of turnovers. So who knows if Amon-Ra St. Brown will be healthy enough to go? But I would like to see J-Mo match up against a Kevin Byard, who leads the NFL in interceptions right now. And just see him go to work. See him end on a high note. J-Mo was a very high note for this team this year, his growth. And so I would like to see him finish that out, because we don't know what we're going to get from the offensive line in terms of health. We don't know what will come out of the run game. But I would love to see J-Mo light it up.
I like
Granted,
that one.
that's going to have to play. We know weather affects Detroit. Weather affects cold. Weather affects. So really, that is the matchup: Detroit versus the weather. But the second matchup is J-Mo. I would like to see J-Mo.
Like you mentioned mine off the top. It's the turnovers. Number 1 team in fewest giveaways with 10. Number 1 team in takeaways with 32. This is a Detroit team coming off a game against Minnesota where they turned the ball over 6 times. That's how you lost the game against an inferior opponent. And so to me, it's as simple as that turnover battle. I think whoever wins that turnover ratio on Sunday wins the game. And Chicago's been really, really good at it. Detroit's been pretty good all year taking care of the football, minus the Minnesota game, which I think is kind of a one-off with just how that game happened. So but it's going to be cold. We'll see what the wind's like, the weather, outdoors, ball slippery. Chicago's really good at. Now Detroit's pretty good at creating some of those takeaways too. So to me, that's the number 1 matchup is who can generate a few of those takeaways, maybe shorten the field, sneak some points in, maybe get a defensive touchdown. We know how those are huge. So
wow, that sounds great, Tim. Like, let's go.
We'll see. All right, let's finish off with this real quick. Let's go through and talk about maybe some MVPs, offensive, defense, rookie of the year. Let's real quick kind of go through where you're at with some of these.
Okay.
All right, who's your 2025 offensive MVP?
I'm gonna go Gibbs, despite the drop off in his production. Like, he's still breaking a ton of records. Most touchdowns scored before age of 24.
Yes.
Like, he
That's
covered
crazy.
a lot of ground, and he
did.
didn't even touch his scrimmage yards from last year. He's probably gonna miss it by like 100 yards. But I think this, like you mentioned, when this team runs the football, it wins. When he doesn't, it loses. So I feel like usually if we're talking about a good season, we're talking about Jared Goff being the MVP. But I think it's swapped this year. I'm going with Gibbs as the MVP.
I'm going Goff. Top 5 in completion percentage, yards, touchdowns, ratings, despite what we talked about with the inconsistencies in the run game.
Yeah.
Despite what we talked about with the inconsistencies up front along the offensive line.
He's still very good.
Despite not having Sam Laporta, a security blanket for him for half the season. Still, to be able to put up those kinds of numbers, different play callers. Good point.
Yeah.
To me, it's Goff, but I like Gibbs. I think they're
he always just meets my expectations. Though Goff, he's always disrespected.
So somebody's got to wow you, basically.
No, but
they've got to wow Dannie Rogers to get in her.
But Goff always is at the top
of her
echelon
list.
for me. So this isn't surprising that he was still able to do all that stuff.
Okay. Defensive MVP. A few candidates here.
Are there?
Well, you're a Michigan gal, so I figured you would just automatically go to the one we're thinking.
Yeah.
I mean,
I might go with someone. I think I would go with someone else.
All right, I want to hear it.
I'll go with the first-time Pro Bowler Jack Campbell.
That's what
Over
I got too.
150 tackles. That's insane.
Only player in the NFL with 155 tackles, 5 sacks, and at least 3 forced fumbles. He does it in a lot of different ways. I think he has announced himself to the NFL as one of the best Mike linebackers in the league, and I think he's going to be a perennial Pro Bowler for as long as he wants to play football. I think he's a 150 tackle guy every season.
Yeah,
I think he's gotten to that point.
He was tasked with captain of the defense coming into this, and he literally blew it out of the water.
Rookie of the year. I know. It's tougher than I thought when I sat down to do it, too. And you've got to give some of these guys time. So I think we've gotten so spoiled because of the 21 class.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the 22 class and all the Pro Bowlers and everything that's come. Now that's the expectation. And it's not a fair expectation for Brad Holmes to have 3 Pro Bowlers every draft class. Look, it's not going to happen. But you look at this class, Tyleek's played a lot of football.
Yeah.
Tate has played the most of any rookie, started every game at right guard. Who you got? You want me to go first this one?
I'm going to go with Tate.
Okay.
I'm going to go with
1
Tate.
sack allowed, 9 total pressures. I looked that up before we sat down.
That's pretty dang good.
For a rookie who's played over 1,000 snaps, that's not bad. Is there room for improvement? And Dan talked about this week.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why he was moved to guard.
Yes.
So he could improve.
There's lots of room for improvement. For me, it's TeSlaa. I like what he's done.
I like that.
6 touchdowns as a rookie. If you were to say before the season a third-round pick is going to have 6 touchdowns, you're like, oh wow, TeSlaa had a pretty good rookie season.
He had a great rookie season.
Did it start great with the one-hand catches and everything like that? Yeah. Yes, but now I think from weeks 6, 7, 8 on, I think behind the scenes he's improved. He's earned more reps. Jared's a guy who went to him in a critical situation in the end zone last week. That just goes to show you the trust that Jared has in this rookie. I think he's only going to get better. For me, it's TeSlaa. 6 touchdowns as a rookie. I'll take that.
I like
take
that
any day.
I think Tate had to be more impactful, but TeSlaa, I think this is his floor, which speaks volumes.
Most improved.
I'm going JMO.
Oh,
is
I
that
like
crazy?
It. No.
Like, he had 1,000 yards last season. He is eclipsing that this season. But the big thing for me in terms of how you measure that is Goff going to JMO like he is to Amon-Ra St. Brown? Just take Laporte out of the equation. He's not in the equation right now.
And in key situations.
In key situations, is he starting to rely on JMO? And I think you saw that later.
I like it.
Later on in the season.
You see the route tree with him too has advanced, and he's doing a lot more. He's not just your 9 guy.
He doesn't have to just take off down the field and be ahead of it. He's doing the work, before he gets the ball. So, JMO's,
I like that.
JMO's
That's a good
one.
It's a good one.
I'm a JMO fan. I'm always going to be a JMO fan. He's grown a lot.
For me, it's a veteran player who's been around a really long time. But Al-Qadim Muhammad made some money this season.
And I don't know if it's with Detroit, but
It
it's
might
going to
not
be
be
in
with
the
Detroit,
NFL.
but it'll be with somebody. When you get 11 sacks, you're top 10 in the league in sacks.
His
You're going to
next
get a few
closest
calls.
season was what, 4 or 6 sacks? It
Something
might have
like
been
that.
4.
So look, he took advantage of opportunities.
Yeah.
Didn't play a ton. Didn't play a massive amount of reps. Was in that
He
rotational
didn't start a single
role.
game, I don't think.
No, but
Yeah.
took advantage of opportunities playing across from Hutch. Fans have always clamored for that, right? We need
I
an
know.
edge opposite.
I know.
Well, they got one that got 11 sacks.
I know.
Now is he as impactful against the run maybe as he can be? No, that's
No.
not his game. His
Yeah.
game is see quarterback, kill quarterback, and he did a pretty good job of it.
He did a
11
great
times
job.
this year. I think he's earned some money. I think he was most improved from what we saw from him last year. He was one of those guys that the Lions wanted to sign on a 1-year vet deal, a prove-it deal. He proved it and made some money.
I know.
Good for him because he's such a great guy to talk to.
I know,
too.
and
He's
his
been on the
son
podcast
is
before.
so
The best.
fun.
Yeah.
His 13-year-old 6-foot son, is my favorite.
So he's mine. All right, let's finish with this one. Comeback player of the year. This is where the Michigan roots falls in.
I mean, yeah, I feel like everyone would be
I
like,
think-
do you hate your alma mater? Well, they haven't been in good spirits as of late, but yeah, Hutch, we'll see how
He's
many
at
sacks he ends with.
13 and a half right now, which
Yeah.
is a career high.
Career high.
So I would agree. Was he I think he was, we both can agree, he was probably on a defensive MVP pace before he got hurt last year.
Well, 100%. Yeah.
Not that.
And it's
this
crazy
year.
that 13 and a half isn't on pace.
Well, when a guy sets the NFL record or ties the NFL record,
Yeah.
I
know, but
yeah.
it feels like it's hard to say that. And I would love to know how Hutch would judge his season. 13 and a half sacks, new career high. But the
Also 59 pressures, which leads the NFL, tie for the lead. So it's
There you
not
go.
just
Isn't
the
that
sacks.
it's crazy. Yeah, that is crazy. I would be curious to see, what he thinks of it. If it lived up, to the insane bar that he sets and everything in his life. Yeah, I'm really curious.
Yeah.
Because the defense couldn't impact teams down the stretch. And they did it in some high pressure situations, but
Not
even
enough.
even in LA, it was
Yeah.
just the first quarter. It wasn't sustained. So it's tough. It's
Yeah.
tough how to judge that. But
Hopefully,
yeah, Hutch
hopefully
would be
this
comeback.
question next year, when we're sitting here talking about it, we're talking about Brian Branch. We're talking about Kirby Joseph leading the league in interceptions.
Doesn't it just
We're
make it
talking
ill
about
thinking about
something-
all the players who will not finish this season?
Yes,
Similar to last year, but I don't know why this year
and key guys.
is a lot worse.
Last year the offense was able to overcome it,
Yeah.
and I think there were some inconsistencies there where they just weren't able to overcome the injuries, unfortunately, and
Yeah.
and that's put themselves in the situation that they're in. But sometimes, like Dan Campbell talked about, that situation can sometimes going down in the dumps is what you maybe need to rise up and
He said this is rock bottom, and I agree with him.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would agree with him too. And so, look, there's one more to go. You end the season on a good note. Get back to playing the brand of football that got you to the NFC Championship game in 23 and the number 1 overall seed in 24. Make the correct changes. Sometimes it takes a season like this to realize you got to make some changes and do
know.
some of those things. And hopefully Detroit does it. But Dannie Rogers, thanks for taking the time on a
Thanks
week
so
18.
much, Timothy.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the Twentyman the Huddle podcast presented by Microsoft. Very happy to welcome Brad Biggs. Does a great job covering everything Chicago Bears for the Chicago Tribune. He is my go-to man for any news in Chicago. Brad, thanks for taking the time. I appreciate you.
Yeah, happy holidays, Tim. Happy to join the podcast here.
Yeah, and look, you guys haven't won a division title in 7 years. Just how does it feel to be playing meaningful football again in January? We're talking about a number 2, a number 3 seed. Probably when this season started, I don't know, Brad, maybe you did think you'd be in this spot. I'd be a little hard-pressed to believe you if you did tell me that, but just how fun is it to be covering kind of this football team and the transition that we've seen under Ben Johnson this season?
Well, I've had to go deep into my bag of tricks that I haven't used in quite some time, Tim, to cover a winning team because the Bears have had such fleeting success here for a long time. A banner season for them back in 2018, but it's been an awful long time since this organization's won a postseason game. That would be in January of 2011. So it's been lean times for the Bears, and no, I would not have predicted that they would have made the playoffs this season. I would not have predicted that they would win the division this season, and yet here we are. They're they'll be the 2 or the 3 seed. They'll have a home playoff game at Soldier Field in the wild card weekend, and the NFC's wide open. I think the whole league
Yeah.
is. I really think the whole league is kind of wide open. Like it's to me pretty easy to identify each one of these playoff teams and say, well, there's a legitimate weakness here. And I don't know that you could say that every year. And I'm not saying the team that appears to not have a weakness always goes on and wins it. That's certainly not the case. But I mean, the Bears just went out to San Francisco and lost a very high scoring game on Sunday night. And the 49ers are a win away from being the top seed in the NFC. And they can't stop anybody on defense. Anybody. They're missing Fred Warner and Nick Bosa. And so the formula for the 49ers is to try to outscore everyone. The Rams looked like the best team in the conference, I think, for a long time, maybe the best team in the league. And they had a horrible collapse at Seattle when they were up big in the fourth quarter. And in a bounce back spot at Atlanta on Monday night, they went out and got shut out in the first half, wind up losing the ball game. So they're not so perfect. So wide open for Ben Johnson and the Bears, and a lot of excitement in the city, as you might imagine.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the disappointing thing for Lions fans is because when you do look at the landscape of the NFC and really the NFL, like you talked about, Brad, it's pretty wide open. I mean, it was just about getting in, and you get into the dance this year, and you can do some damage. How important is the 2 seed for Chicago when you talk about getting prepared for Detroit on Sunday? Is it all hands on deck? They want that 2 seed, and obviously that helps your chances of playing home playoff games throughout the playoffs if you get it.
Yeah, I think the 2 seed is important for a number of reasons. As you said, would put them in a spot where they'd at least, if they won the first one, would be guaranteed of being at home again in the divisional round. But 2 seed's going to draw the Packers. So the Green Bay's either heading to Soldier Field for a third meeting with the Bears this season, or the Packers will go to Philadelphia. The Eagles are the other team with a shot at the 2 seed. Green Bay's beat up, right? I mean,
Yeah.
some real injuries there. Jordan Love, I would guess he's going to clear concussion protocol before the playoffs, but you know as well as I do that trying to figure out how guys will come back from injuries is a great way to make a fool of yourself, and trying to predict concussions that's simply impossible. Doctors can't do it. How could you or I? So I would think, you look, okay, play the opponent, because you look, if you fall to the 3 seed, if you're the Bears and you fall to the 3 seed, you want to play, you really want to play the Rams with Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford? Do you want to, it's going to be an NFC West club. And, I don't know that right out of the gate, you want to be tangling with a team like that.
Yeah, I think a familiar foe, one that's dealing with some injuries, specifically on defense to their best player, is probably the best avenue. And then again, you get that 2 seed, and you never know. That 1 seed, gets upset in the second round, and boom, all of a sudden everything travels through Chicago. So obviously a lot on the line for Chicago on Sunday. Look, Brad, we knew this offense was going to be good when Ben Johnson, went over there. You just knew that he was going to, push some of the right buttons, that you're going to see Caleb develop. But are people in Chicago just surprised at how much he's meant to this turnaround? And just what's your overall impression of the job Ben's done, this season?
I think he's done a phenomenal job, starting with building a pretty good coaching staff. Like they are completely different on the offensive line, and part of that was going out and getting some new personnel. But Ben hired an offensive line coach that Dan Campbell knew, that Dennis Allen, his defensive coordinator here, knew, but Ben didn't know. And Dan Roshar, he's done a good job. So he hired Al Harris as the passing game coordinator on defense. They're tops in the league in interceptions, number 1 in takeaways. So I think it started with hiring a really good staff, but I mean, he's just kind of got a next level offensive mind. He's answered all the questions that are natural for any first-time head coach. Like, can the guy command the room? Can he stand in front of the entire team and deliver his message, hold it together, deal with players? You knew he could handle it with half a team, right? You saw him do it with half a roster in Detroit. Well, he can get it done here with the whole team too. But again, I think for them to be in a spot right now where they could wind up 12-5 if they win, even 11-6. Like I thought going into the year, like 9-8 would be a really good season for the Bears. I thought that would show real progress, especially considering how tough this division was last year and how difficult it has been this year. And the Vikings have had their issues, and you know what Detroit's kind of gone through, and then the Packers with some of the injuries. But yeah, no, it's it's been certainly a surprise. I think Bears fans, though, expected success to come, maybe not this fast, because Ben Johnson was viewed as the number one guy in that coaching cycle. Like, hey, there's the rock star coaching candidate. This is the next guy that people could talk about when they talk about McVay types or things of that. And even Dan Campbell, although, Dan, it took a while to get that thing pointed in the right direction for him. So, a lot of buzz and excitement in the city. I'm sure you'll feel it when you're in town. And yeah, I know most of the fans, I think, are kind of pointed ahead to the playoffs at this point because the game doesn't have a ton of meaning to them, but the players are locked in. I think they're really tuned in to bouncing back after the loss in San Francisco, trying to get a win to because if they just win, they lock up the 2 seed.
And is there anything to look? Week 2, Chicago came to Detroit, and Detroit handed it to them. They scored 52 points, and I'm curious that's a long time ago, Brad. And Chicago's such a different football team when they were 0-2. Sitting at that game. But is there any residual look? We know we're going to the playoffs, but this is a team that put 52. This is a team that was the reigning division champions, 2 times, the last 2 years. And is there anything to that heading into this matchup about, hey, let's play a Detroit team that's reeling a little bit, but we know where they've been. We saw what they did to us week 2, and let's go into the playoffs on a good note?
Well, I don't know if it's so much Detroit and, hey, remember what they did back in week 2, and that was just an absolute butt kicking. Like the Lions didn't even go to second down very often. It was like first down, then they're in the end zone. Listen, the Bears are 2-3 in the division. They are the division champions right now. They've got a 2-3 record in the NFC North. They beat Minnesota once. They've beaten Green Bay once. This is an opportunity to beat the Lions once, get to 3-3. You want to, you want to do that. You want to get the 2 seed. But week 2 was, this is you're right. This is a totally different Bears team. And for a lot of reasons that I think are attributable to health, the Detroit is a much different football team than it was back in week 2 as well.
All right, before I let you go, any injury-wise, any concerns there for guys, being available Chicago-wise for this matchup Sunday?
Yeah, they haven't even gotten on the field yet, and it's going to be a walkthrough today. So whatever injury report comes out later Wednesday will be an estimation. Luther Burden got banged up on the final play of the game at San Francisco. Roma Dunze has missed the last 4 games with a foot injury. My total guess, he gets back on the practice field this week. Does that mean he potentially plays? I don't know. But other than that, I don't think they've got a ton of, they're not a bunch of huge injuries you're looking at. They've dealt with things in the secondary all year. Pretty much healed up there with the exception of Kyler Gordon. So they'll be, guys that are healthy will be out there. I don't know what they'll do with the Dunze because he's missed about a month, but guys that are available, I'd expect to see in uniform and playing Sunday afternoon.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what Detroit does. They've got some injuries that they're dealing with. They obviously want to win this game, but they want to be smart long-term about some of their core pieces too. So we'll see what Team Detroit brings to Chicago on Sunday. But Brad, I will just say this in closing. I'm glad you get to deal with some meaningful football in the month of January, and hopefully somebody from the NFC North, whether it's Green Bay or Chicago, makes a run at it. I'm kind of hoping Chicago a little bit, just because I know the history there and the losing of late, have been there myself. So good luck in the playoffs, and we'll see you guys on Sunday.
Take care, Tim.